Today, we are embarking on a journey through the enchanting country of France, a land of stunning landscapes, rich history, and vibrant culture. From the iconic Eiffel Tower to the rolling vineyards of Bordeaux, France has captured the hearts and imaginations of millions around the world. Join us as we take a journey through this fascinating nation. The Eiffel Tower. It is one of the world's most recognizable landmarks. The tower took only 26 months to construct and was completed in record time in March 1889. But when the construction was over, most Parisians hated it. In a letter signed by artists and writers, the critics were very harsh. They thought the iron structure outshone the classic and elegant city of Paris. Parisians referred to the Eiffel Tower as grid and factory chimney. We writers, painters, sculptors, architects, and passionate devotees of the hitherto untouched beauty of Paris protest with all our strength, with all our indignation in the name of slighted French taste, against the erection of this useless and monstrous Eiffel Tower. One of those who opposed the Eiffel Tower was the French writer Guy de Maupassant. He went to lunch at base of Eiffel Tower almost every day because he hated it, and that was the only place in Paris from which he could not see it. The construction of the tower cost 8 million francs, and even during the construction phase, it attracted the attention of tourists as it is today. France, the most visited country in the world, attracts approximately 89 million visitors every year who come to take in the culture and enjoy the food. And Paris, one of the most visited cities, welcomed over 33 million tourists in 2022. And of course, Eiffel Tower is the most visited, photographed, and shared social media place in Paris. Gustave Eiffel, after whom the Eiffel Tower is named, is also one of the designers of the Statue of Liberty in the USA. If you want to imagine how big France is, a good comparison is that it is slightly smaller than the state of Texas. But while France isn't that big, it is the biggest country in the European Union. For a little more perspective, France is twice as big as the United Kingdom and 8 times the size of Ireland. The territory of France consists of 2 parts as mainland and overseas territories. France is the country with the most time zones in the world due to its overseas territory. There are 12 different time zones. This country is globally renowned for its agricultural industry, particularly for its expertise in producing high-quality dairy products. There are over 1,000 types of cheese in France. Different milks are being used, and the taste varies a ton from one to another. In addition, this is the place where most snails are eaten in the world. The French eat 25,000 tons of snails each year. On average, a resident of France eats approximately 500 snails per year. In France, snails are referred to as escargot. While there are several different types of escargot that you can eat, one of the most common ways to eat snails in France is cooked in butter and garlic. Of course, the best way to eat snails in France is to do so at a French restaurant. French wine is produced all throughout France, in quantities between 50 and 60 million hectoliters per year, or 7 to 8 billion bottles. France is one of the largest wine producers in the world. How would you like to take a little tour of France? Meet the ultimate second city. Long ignored by tourists but adored by chefs, Lyon remains France's great gastronomic secret. The capital of gastronomy, and the home of one of France's most famous chefs, Paul Bocuse, who passed away in 2018, Lyon is blessed with an incredibly diverse range of food. This is thanks to its geographic location as a hub for regions offering top-quality produce and the excellence of its talented and creative chefs. Also, Lyon was the birthplace of cinema. In Lyon at the end of the 18th century, the Lumiere brothers invented the cinematograph, a device that allowed film to be shown publicly and paved the way for today's cinematic experience. Marseille is the oldest city in France and the second largest after Paris. The city was founded by Greek mariners as Massalia in around 600 BC and soon developed into an important port in the ancient Greek world. The city is home to almost 900,000 people living in its 16 districts, most of which have held onto their authentic village atmosphere. Marseille, and especially the Château d'If, were featured in Alexandre Dumas' masterpiece, The Count of Monte Cristo. Bordeaux, southwest France, one of France's great historic port cities and center for the Bordeaux wine trade. Thanks to the top-quality wines produced in the local vineyards, Bordeaux is a city whose name is more recognizable than that of any other French city, after Paris. Producing well upwards of 500,000 bottles annually, Bordeaux is the largest producer of high-end wines. The majority of Bordeaux wines are red, and Merlot, Cabernet, and Sauvignon make up the majority of plantings. Nice is the capital city of the French Riviera, and France's second most popular tourist city. It is founded by the Greeks and later become a retreat for 19th-century European elite. Nice has been a magnet for tourists for centuries. It's the epitome of sunlit sophistication, from its architecture to its seaside promenade. It's beloved by everyone from Queen Victoria to Elton John. And also the city has long attracted artists too. For example, Henri Matisse used to have a house here. Although Pablo Picasso was not born here, he spent most of his life in Antibes. He was particularly inspired while visiting the town and eventually bought a big house in Antibes, where he spent most of his life. Arles is a city on the Rhône River in the Provence region of southern France. Arles is famous for being the home of Van Gogh during part of his life. One can follow the footsteps of this renowned painter who settled in Arles in 1888 and where he painted over 300 canvases, including his famous sunflowers. Paris is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Paris has many different faces. It's a city rich in culture, art, design, beauty, and history. Whether you are standing in line to see Mona Lisa, trying to take that perfect picture of the Eiffel Tower, searching for the yummiest croissants, or just wandering through Montmartre, Paris is a city that will capture your heart for sure. How would you like to take a short tour of Paris? Erected on request of Napoleon, the Triumphal Arch is one of the most famous monuments in Paris. Besides the aesthetic reasons due to the beauty of the building and the panorama of the capital it offers, the Triumphal Arch is also an important historical symbol, real link between the old and modern Paris. The purpose of the Triumphal Arch was to perpetuate the memory of the victories of Napoleon. The first stone was laid on of 1806, and the monument finished 30 years later, in 1836. The Triumphal Arch honors those who fought and died for France during the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, with the names of all French victories and heroes inscribed on its inner and outer surfaces. It is one of the most famous streets in the world. This famous Parisian boulevard spans a length of 1.9 kilometers and a width of 70 meters. When you walk to the end of the street, with restaurants and luxury shops along the way, you can find the Concorde Square and the Louvre Museum. Louvre Museum is the largest art museum in the world. This museum is so big that if you wanted to spend 30 seconds looking at each piece of art, it would take you approximately 100 days to get through the entire museum. While approximately 36,000 works of art, including the Mona Lisa painting, are exhibited in the Louvre Museum, 450,000 works of art are waiting to be exhibited. Before the Louvre became a museum, it was a fortress built in the 12th century and then renovated into a royal palace in the 16th century. The Louvre Pyramid, which welcomes you before entering the museum, was added to the museum in 1989. The Louvre is a universal museum with 8 curatorial departments: Egyptian, Near Eastern, Greek, Etruscan, and Roman antiquities, paintings, sculptures, decorative arts, prints and drawings, and Islamic art. Constructed between the 12th and 14th centuries, Notre Dame de Paris has centuries of French history built into its stone. The Gothic Cathedral is considered one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture. During the French Revolution, Notre Dame took such a battering that Paris officials considered its demolition. In order to raise awareness for the ancient cathedral and revive interest in Gothic architecture, which had become widely disregarded, Victor Hugo wrote the novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1831. And he led to the renovation of the building, initiating a campaign to save the cathedral. On the 15th of April 2019, a fire broke out beneath the roof of the Notre Dame Cathedral. By the time the structure fire was extinguished, the building's spire had collapsed, Most of its roof had been destroyed, and its upper walls were severely damaged. Almost $1 billion donated in a very short time for reconstruction after the destructive fire. Two years after the First World War, the world wanted nothing more than to move forward and forget the terror of the war, the pain and losses. France is slowly reconstructing itself steps by steps, and the economy of the country is slowly growing. Paris soon becomes a center for youth, culture and wealth, and partying, freedom and euphoria are the three words marking the crazy years. The feeling of liberty could be seen everywhere in Paris. Pictures of naked women, dancers dressed in next to nothing illustrated this era. Exotic dancers, such as the infamous Josephine Baker, and cabarets were well known and frequented by men and women alike, and the idea of sexual liberty was severely anchored in Parisians' minds. In the districts of Montmartre and Montparnasse, there are cafes and salons frequented by the intellectual elite from all over the world. The painters Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, rubbed shoulders with writers like Ernest Hemingway, Gertrude Stein, André Breton, or the filmmakers Louis Buñuel and Jean Cocteau. With the progression of jazz, cabarets, new music hall artists such as Josephine Baker and Florence Mills, and muses of artists such as the unforgettable Kiki Montparnasse developed. Soon enough, the economy collapsed completely and expanded worldwide. If the crazy years began with a major economic growth, it was an economic crisis that ended this iconic era. We've come to the end of our journey through France, and hope you've enjoyed this glimpse of this amazing country. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more great content. We always welcome your feedback, so please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and happy exploring.